Yeah, there's a few more players here. There's more players and staff this year, which is a good start. Yeah, so I think we've got 22 training. Obviously, 11 away with the senior squad in Australia, and I think it's 6 away with the 20s. So we've got 17 coming back. I think August the 19th. But yeah, there's loads we can do with 22. So this week just easing in really, a lot of welcomes to new staff and new players, and just getting the boys back with their hands on the ball and their bodies moving really. Yeah, they're all pretty good. I think probably the days are gone now where players come back in and they've done nothing for 5 weeks. I think the last couple of weeks especially, they kind of get themselves ticking over and almost have a pre-season, if you like, is they'll do some of their own work, and obviously our conditioners will set them some little targets and what have you. So yeah, the boys have come back in decent nick really. Yeah, it's a little bit early really. We've had some kind of small group meetings where they've brought some of their experience, but I think it's like anyone going into any new environment really. I think you find your feet first, kind of get a feeling of what the group's like, and then once you're training and you get your credibility on the pitch, then your voice grows. So I've not put any pressure on the boys coming in to kind of be front of house straight away. I think they've got to ease their way in and yeah, as I said, find their feet, and then I think organically their voices will come through. It has with the coaches. We obviously met the week before we come back in and just had a look at some areas that we can improve, and I think the good thing is we have got solutions for the players. I think first week in we try not to kind of, as soon as the players get back through the door, is fill their head with too much too soon. So as I said, this week really is about getting their bodies moving and getting the ball moving and just reintegrating some of the old group with the new group. Next week we'll start to look at some of the areas we can improve, and I think that's what we're going to talk about this season really. Is we talked about fight and enjoyment last season, and we're going to look to delve deeper into that. Let's see if we can see more fight and play the type of game that's more enjoyable for people to watch. But probably added on top of that is we've got to find a way of growing. So we've talked this week about how the players grow individually, so it might be some things off pitch, it might be a couple of things around their extras, and then next week we'll start to talk about how we can grow the team in terms of our technical habits, some of our training habits, because it was pretty well publicised. We weren't far away last year, so this year's just about trying to grow that. Yeah, I was just so chuffed for Ben to get called into the Wales squad, because I've seen what he's done in the week to get there. So his training habits have improved by 10%. He was a decent trainer anyway, but it's, if you don't mind me saying, his training is a little bit more deliberate. Gethin Jenkins has been brilliant with him in terms of his defence and working on a couple of technical points for him. And I think just by having a pretty minimal change really in his training habits in the week, we've seen maybe a 20% increase in his game, and yeah, well, obviously delighted for him to be in Welsh camp, and we'd like to think that some of those changes that he's done at Cardiff in the week has enabled him to get on the tour. Listen, I think the first thing is we wanted to get two decent quality opposition. We're delighted to get Ealing away. They showed last year with their game against Leicester Tigers, very competitive. Obviously we'll have the Welsh players back only a week or two before that game, so depending on kind of what kind of physical state they come back in, whether they'll play in that one. But obviously Bath home, we got a recent history with playing them. Should be a great fixture that, yeah, we'll try and get as many of the boys on the field as we can to that. But it'll be same as most pre-seasons really. It'll be part game, part still preparation for Zebra at home, first game of the season. To be honest, probably a little bit, but only because I didn't have a massive reference point in terms of where they were. But so I'll probably use Callum Sheedy as an example. I was at Bristol in 2011-12, and Sheedy was a 19-year-old then coming through, and he ended up playing in the Championship semi-final and playoff final. and I think he was 19, 20, his first real involvement for Bristol, and his youth almost helped him because he was fairly carefree and just attacked the games, and I think that's probably replicated last season. So the likes of Cam and Mackenzie and Manny and Evan Lloyd, Evan Daniel, etc., they've had a great attitude towards playing for Cardiff. There's not been any fear for them. They've attacked the games, and you've seen in their performances, it's been quite refreshing, really. So it wasn't a surprise because I've seen it before, but obviously because I didn't have a reference point for those boys individually, it's been a nice surprise. But let's hope this year, I talked about growth earlier, that they can grow their game another 5 or 10%. Yeah, listen, time will tell with this season, and you'd like to think each year they're going to get a little bit better. So they had some brilliant experiences last year in terms of playing like top end Champions Cup opponents, derbies, the week to week, if you like, of the URC, and 70% of them have got a chance to show that with Wales as well. So one thing to probably be aware of is we have to be aware of their fatigue, mentally and physically. But I think if we look after them properly, the Welsh setup and the Cardiff setup, we should see some growth in them this year. Yeah, I think so. You'd never want them to miss a tour. Obviously, say Josh Adams is a 50-plus cap international British Lion. He needed a rest, probably mentally and physically, and he's had that. Manny is at the other end of his career, really. So I think disappointed, like us and him, that he couldn't go on the tour. But long term, it'll probably benefit him, as you said, because he did need a rest.